Most of the prophecies of Amos are taking or referring to the wealthy taking advantage of the poor, a lot of social sins. So too, of course, he's rebuking Israel regarding Avodah Zarah. But the prophecy we're about to read, and when we learn the shiur weekly, the Haftarah of the Shabbat, we'll ask ourselves, why was this chosen? Again, there are different customs. It could be that in your Sephardi custom they read something else, but most of the Ashkenazi customs that came from Germany and Western Europe read this Haftarah from the Sefer Amos. So without further ado, let's open up to Amos. It's in the last chapter of his Sefer, Perek Tet, chapter 9. Please find it and open it up. Okay. I would like to give you all 3 minutes to read the beginning of the Haftarah, which starts in Pasuk Zayin, is it? Yes, Zayin. And it ends after Tedvav. A very short Haftarah. Read it, and then we're going to study it together. From Pasuk Zayin, chapter 9, Pasuk Zayin. That's enough. Thank you, sir. Toda Rabbi. For those making brachot, Lilu Nishmat Chaya Bat Shaul. Amen. Okay. Okay, let's begin, bivakasha. Most of the Sefer of Amos is tochacha, rebuke. We'll ask ourselves, what is the connection, if at all, between this reading of this chapter and the portion of the week? Number 3, we're going to see a claim, a counterclaim, and again another claim. The prophet says in Pasuk Zayin, Halo kivnei chushiyim atem li bnei Yisrael ne'um Adonai. Halo et Yisrael ha'eleti mi'eretz Mitzrayim u'flishtim mikaftor va'aram mikir. Gentlemen, earlier in this chapter and in the former chapter, Amos talks about the yichus, the lineage of the Jewish people of God. However, what's going on as far as social corruption right now in the Shomron is very bad. Year after year, generation after generation. You know, people think mistakenly that since we are Hashem's people, He will overlook the sins, overlook the shortcomings. Against that claim, Hashem says, you know, God, you guys are just like the children of Cush. Where do we see Cush mentioned in the Tanakh?
After the flood, right?
The what? You're right, it's mentioned after the flood in the person called Cush. Where do we see the nation called Cush?
In Ethiopia.
Where do we see it? What about the kingdom of Achashverosh? How many countries did he rule over?
127.
127 countries. Mehodu ve'ad Cush. Why is Cush used there? Cush is somewhere in Africa. Okay? Whether it's truly Ethiopia or somewhere else, it could be. But if you want to give an example of a nation living far away, Cush is used in the Tanakh. What does the prophet say? You, Bnei Yisrael, don't imagine to your hearts that I will not give you punishment for your wrongs. I will not abstain from punishing you, just like I will not abstain from punishing which nation? Cush. If they don't keep how many mitzvot b'nei Noach?
7.
7 mitzvot b'nei Noach. So just like I will not abstain from Cush, giving punishment, I will not abstain from you. But what will be the claim of Bnei Yisrael? The second part of the pasuk, there's a counterclaim, even though God is speaking. Halo et Yisrael ha'eleitim eretz Mitzrayim. You know what Bnei Yisrael is likely to say? But you took us out of Mitzrayim. We're your children. No, I'm sorry. Don't think you will be absolved from din. Why? The last part of the pasuk. Uflishtiyim mekaftor, va'aram mekir. You know what? I took other nations from one place and I let them drift to another place. Take, for example, God's claim is Plishtim. I allowed the Plishtim to travel from a place called Kaftor. Some say it's Crete, the islands in the Mediterranean. Okay? And I also allowed to come out Aram Mekir. Aram, I brought them Kir as Armenia, apparently. And I let them arrive here in the northeastern part of the Middle East. So don't think that what? Because I took you out, you'll be absolved from punishment. I also oversaw the traveling, the migration of 2 other nations. And just like they are not outside my radar for punishment, so too you, Bnei Yisrael. That's the opening of the rebuke, the tochacha of the prophet. Remember, most of our prophecies are coming to give us rebuke. If everything would be A-okay inside Israel, then they would not be sent. Hashem would not prophesize them. Let's go on. Pasuk Chet, verse 8. Hine behold, Einei Adonai Elohim, B'mamlacha hachata'a, Vishmadeti ota me'al pnei adama. Efes, ki lo ashmed et Beit Yaakov num Adonai. Now, the former pasuk taught us that in spite of the yichus, the lineage of the Jewish people, when it's coming to give punishment, they're not going to be more important than nations of the world. And therefore, Hashem's eyes, Hashem Elokim. You notice 2 names of God here? The second one is Elokim, even though it says Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Our learning is, and we read 2 names of God, one next to the other. The second is Elokim. Elokim is obviously which attribute?
Jewish judgment.
And in Hebrew?
Din.
Din. Midata din, the attribute of din, of judgment. To whom will be my judgment? Notice the term. B'mamlacha chata'a. It doesn't say the kingdom that is sinning. It's talking about the kingdom that is used to sinning. Mamlacha, the kingdom here we're talking about, the northern part of the nation of the land of Israel. How many tribes are north of Israel, of Yerushalayim?
10.
The 10 tribes, the Aseret HaShvatim. So he's basically saying, my judgment will be in the kingdom that is used to sing. He's referring to the Aseret HaShvatim, the 10 tribes. And what will he do? Vishmaditi, God will put his eye for judgment to bring destruction. Me'al pnei adama. Now, what is going to be destroyed? The people or the mamlacha, the kingdom? So here God clarifies. Vishmaditi, what will I destroy? Ota. Who is Ota? Who is Ishmaditi Ota? The mamlacha, the kingdom. There's a lot of political corruption going on by the tribal leaders, the northern kingdom. That's what the mamlacha is referring to. Okay? Now, will the people be destroyed? No. That's what he says at the end of the pasuk. Ephes. Ephes ki. I know in numbers, Ephes is 0. But when the term here appears at the end of Pasuk 8, Efes ki, it's an idiom or an expression to meaning aval. However, what will my decree not destroy? Lo hashmed ashmidet beit Yaakov. The kingdom, the politicians, the corrupt ones, I will destroy, but not the people as a whole. The ones that are right now doing social corruption, okay, and manipulating others, taking financial advantage over others. That's what Hashem is now saying through the prophet Amos. And he now explains how will this designation come about. Pasuk tet, Ki hine anochi mitzaveh. Okay? You want to know how I'm going to bring the destruction of this kingdom, yet leave the nation alive? I will explain to you. I'm commanding the following. V'hani'oti b'chol hagoyim et beit Yisrael. Kasher yino'a b'kivara v'lo yipol tzoror aretz. Your question is, how will it be that I will bring destruction to the kingdom, yet allow the nation to keep on living? It's very clear. Here it says, V'hani'oti. What is lahaniya? The verb lahaniya. Right. How do you? What's the word for an engine? Manoa. Manoa. Excellent. In pasuk tet of chapter 9, the last pasuk of the book of Amos. Vanioti bechol hagoyim. Have you heard of the wandering Jew? Here is the source, or one of the sources. Lehania, I'm going not to kill the people. I'm going to take care of the kingdom. They're corrupt. The politicians. What will I do? I will take the people and I'm going to cause them to drift, cause them to wander, exile them out of the land. That's what it says. And they'll be living amongst where? The nations of the world. Vanioti, see the words, please. Very important that you learn the words. Vanioti b'chol hagoyim et beit Yisrael. In other words, the punishment will be all those that deserve this punishment. It could be that God will take din, judgment, and bring death to the leaders. And to the others that are followers, he will cause them to be exiled, cause them to drift. And you know, Jews will never find grace in one land. They'll travel from one land to another land, to another land. Okay? This historical phenomena, the Or Sameach, Meir Simcha of Devinsk, one of the great commentators on the later coming, he lived right before the Holocaust. He writes, based upon a pasuk at the end of Vayikra, that the Jews will think that they're finding life now in this galut, and they'll build their social institutions and their religious institutions and so on and so forth, until a wave of hatred, currents of anti-Semitism come enough to move to another country. That's what Hashem is promising here. You're going to be drifting from one place to another place in the galut. You'll be wandering from place to place. Just like what? Kasher yinoa b'kivara. When you have a sifter, a kivara is a sifter. What do you sift? You have a metal bottom on the sifter with holes inside it, right? You pour your flour, your wheat, or whatever you have there, and what falls to the bottom?
The good part.
The bigger part, yeah. Right? The ones that are going to fall through the sivra are rescued, are saved. Those are going to be the tzaddikim. By sifting, Hashem will catch on top who? The wicked. And the tzaddikim will be allowed to continue living. Just like you sift with a kivara and the holes on it, the large ones go down to the bottom. They will be preserved. The ones that will be caught on top will be taken punishment. So God knows exactly what he's doing and how he'll do it. Yet, judgment on the one hand, yet preserve and keep Jewish people living in the galut. How will they die? Pasuk Yud, verse 10. Who will die? The Rishaim. Ba'cherev, Pasuk Yud, follow the Hebrew, please. Get a Tanakh, sir. Ba'cherev yamutu. kol chataei ami. Haomrim lo tagish v'tagdim ba'adenu hara'a. The ones that are sinning amongst my nation, those are the ones that even in the galut they're going to die out. That's what Hashem is referring to here by the prophet, based on the former pasuk. So Chata'ei Ami, the sinners of my nation, are parallel to what he opened up with the kingdom that is used to doing all the sinning. Because when you know what happens to a Jew psychologically, and the Gemara brings the Mesilat Yesharim brings it, when a person sins and he sees nothing happens to him, and then he sins again and he repeats it, nothing's happened, he thinks that it's okay. He's already used to it. It's already habitual. It's a mistaken thought. God is allowing him to continue to choose to sin or not to choose. He's purposely not hitting him or buzzing him this way or that way. And therefore, there are people that mistakenly think that once I sin and nothing happens, I can do it again and nothing will happen. So that is obviously a big mistake. Okay? I'm not going to allow them not to be touched. How? Ha'omrim, these are the people saying mistakenly, Lo tagish v'tagdim ba'deinu hara. What are they thinking mistakenly? Oh, everything is tranquil. Oh, everything is fine. I don't have to listen to what the prophets are saying. It's not true what they're saying. Remember, there were people chastising Yirmiyahu Navi. That's not true that the Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed. It's not true that we're going to go out to Babylon. And they took Yirmiyahu, where did they throw him to? Into prison. Yeah. Imagine, they took the prophet and threw him to prison.
A Jew is a Jew, always a Jew. People say, yeah?
Okay.
A Jew is always a Jew.
So here, the prophet from Hashem is using the psychology. You think you're going to be the untouchables? You think you're going to be, because you're God's people? No. I have other nations, of course you're special, but you have obligation. On that day, Bayomahu, tell me if you know this pasuk or part of this pasuk from somewhere. Bayomahu, on that day, the day of what? When the disaster is going to happen. Akim et sukat David, hanofelet. Digest that. Let's read the second half and we'll go back. Vegadarti et pirtzehen, vasirotav akim, uvnitia kimei olam. Here, remember the prophet promised that he will not destroy the house of Yaakov, even though God will bring punishment to the politicians and send them out. What does the prophet liken this mamlacha, the northern kingdom, its kingdom is likened to what? To a bayit or a sukkah?
A sukkah.
What does a sukkah represent as opposed to a bayit?
It's weak.
A sukkah is weak. What else? Temporary. Any other ideas?
Spirituality.
Weak. Weak, you said weak.
Spirituality, bitachon.
Oh, so you're saying two opposite things now. On the one hand, Michal says it's weak. You, David, say it's temporary. What did you add, Michal?
Someone who's moving.
It's moving. He'd be moved by the wind, you mean, right? The schach can be blown by the wind. And now, David, you're going to a different idea. Let's see.
Trust in Hashem.
So that you with David, you're giving opposite ideas here.
No, on the contrary. Because the sukkah, the physical sukkah is so weak, we trust in Hashem to protect us.
So I'm saying, okay, Peseda. We all know that a sukkah is weak. It's not a house. It's not made out of cement, and there are no iron foundations in a sukkah. Although the walls, you could make an iron foundation, but the fact that the schach, you can put your fist through it and make a hole and so on and so forth, it's not the strength of a bayit. Sukkah is a sukkah, a bayit is a bayit. Here, the sukkah is likened to what? So you're going again with David, and David is saying, the sukkah is shechina, the sukkah, you have faith in it, you have security in it. I will try to understand both of your understandings, which I think are two opposing difficulties, although David wants to compile it together in a moment. It says Sukkot David Hanofelet. What does Hanofelet mean?
The fallen from the fire.
It stands to fall. It's about to fall right now. It's like the present tense, isn't it? Because if we past tense, it would say Sukkot David
Nafalti.
Nafla.
Nafla.
And in the future, Tipol. But in the present, no Felet. It's a very unusual grammatical expression. And what does it mean? The pshat of it can mean clearly that the Sukkot David, meaning the northern kingdom, stands to fall. The northern kingdom stands to fall, and therefore it's very weak. I have something here. Yeah. Okay. Do you know when we use the words in our Brechat HaMazon, Sukkot David Hanofelet? In Sukkot. We have a special, at least the Ashkenazim, I don't know if it's in the Sfaradim, Harachaman, may the merciful, Hu Yakim Lanu, may establish for us, Sukkot David Hanofelet. Okay? Usually when we hear the term Sukkot David that is falling, okay, we have a feeling of it's weak, it's a miskenot, it's something small. And just like you said, the structure of a sukkah is temporary. Certainly a sukkah that is about to fall is temporary. That's what the word, Sukkot David Hanofelet. It's falling right now. And you know what? It's so fitting for the punishment of Jews being in the Galut. When Jews go out to the Galut, we're like us. We have God's presence over us, but it's like a presence over us that we're weak. We're like a Sukkot David Hanofelet. And therefore, the first meaning here is, on that day, meaning when the disaster comes to the northern kingdom, to the Shomron kingdom, okay, I will not destroy them, but they're going to fall. They're going to fall. Okay? But you know what? I will let them fall, but not totally. I will establish them. In other words, here is a promise that they will come back to the Shomron. They will rule. There'll be a Jewish ruler again in the future. Okay? Because it says at the second part of the pasuk, V'gadarti et pirtzehen. I will close up whatever breaches there are. Vasirotav hakim, and whatever destroyed places I will establish. Is this a rebuke or is this consolation?
Both. The second part is a...
The second part is a consolation. Do you realize that we're coming towards the end of the Sefer of Amos? What did you say?
The best part is starting now.
The best part is starting now. So...
I think it's, we see the prophecy right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. Very nice what Israel is saying. Here, we're now starting the end of the book of Amos. According to our great scholars, the prophets would never end with a bad thing. We always want to have a happy ending. We always want to end with a better thing and not end with the rebuke, not end with the judgment. So in spite of the fact that God, through Amos, remember Amos living in Judea, but his prophecies are regarding the Shomron, the 10 tribes, and not Yehuda. And here he's saying that we're likened to a sukkah which is weak. But you know what? On that same day, there's going to be a new start. There's going to be a future. There's going to be optimism because I will help fence in the breaches. I will help build or establish the breaking parts and build it like it was in the past. So there are those, one of my Rabbis, Rav Eli Mali, who's the Rosh Yeshiva in Yafo, the Yeshivat Hesder, he brings a commentary by a great rabbi called Rav Aryeh Ben Tzvi, that the word Sukkot David Hanofelet comes from the word Nephilim. Do you remember the term in Bereshit, Nephilim? What does that refer to, David?
Was it like the fallen angels or something?
Giants?
The giants.
Oh, no,
Those are the giants.
Okay.
Okay, and there it says in even Bamidbar about the 12 spies, and there we saw the Nephilim, the children of Anakim. Right, very good. So it could be that Sukkot David Hanofelet, that in the future it will be the Davidian kingdom. It'll be the Judean kingdom from the house of David. They will be like giants, not 6'4", 250 kilos, but they will be gigantic in value, in morals, in ethics, in Torah, in Yirat Shamayim. And they will lead the comeback of the Jewish people, which maybe, coming to my mind right now, some of you already know the famous Gemara, Masechet Sanhedrin, that talks about that we will have two Mashiachim. We will have the material Mashiach that is explained to be the Mashiach ben Yosef, and we will have the more spiritual side of the comeback to the Jewish people in the land of Israel, which is called Mashiach ben David. Okay, two parts of the Messianic redemption that's often learned here. So here we see there's going to be punishment, yet there's going to be consolation. Why? Pasuk Yud Bet, Lema'an yireshu et sherit Edom v'chol hagoyim, asher nikra shmi aleihem, ne'um Adonai osezot. At the end of this pasuk, in my printed Tanakh, I have the letter Pei, or in yours, you have a gap of letters. It's open. As if this is an end of a section. You have it as well? You have a gap as well? Very good. Why, once I reestablish the Davidian kingdom and we start building things, then you'll be able to what? Yirishu, to drive out. It could be that nations are taking our land in the interim, right? The Turks lived here, the British operated here, but you'll be able then to overcome them, drive them out, whatever's left over Edom. Edom, the Edomite Empire, which stems from which individual in the Chumash? Esav, which we believe is what evolves from that is the Christian world, what settles, develops Europe. If they're going to be ruling over us, you'll be able to conquer them later on. V'chol hagoyim and any other nations, okay? What he's saying right now is that during the time of destruction, we, the land of Israel, the tribes in the Shomron especially, will succumb to the powers of nations driving us out. However, when under the house of David we will unite, then we'll be able to be victorious over our enemies. We'll be able to reassert ourselves in the land. That's the end of this part of the consolation, or what Yisrael calls the good part, the nice part. Okay? Now let's see the ending of this Haftarah, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled, and Tetvav, and see how can we relate today in our generation. Okay? Do you have a Tanakh? No? That's Mishnayot. It's hard to learn Tanakh in the Mishnah. Maybe you can get a Tanakh over there. Okay. Let's see when reading it. Now, let's see other consolation. Hine, Yamim ba'im ne'um Adonai, v'nigash choresh b'kotzer, v'dorech hanavim b'moshech hazara, v'hitifu ha'arim asis, v'chol ha'gevaot tit mogagna. Here we see an amazing consolation. But you know what? Before I go to the consolation, I want to ask you, do you see in this Haftarah any correlation to the Parsha we've been learning, Parshat Acharei or Kedoshim? Was there a tochacha, a rebuke in our Parsha? Was there a promise of judgment in our Parsha? Do you remember? I think we even learned about it in our shiur here. What do you remember? That if we defile the land by not preserving the laws of adultery, the land will vomit you out. Okay, very good. The land will vomit you out. So some say that is the parallel, that is the correlation. The idea here of this Haftarah is really a prophecy of what God says to Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the nation, that Am Yisrael should not consider themselves off limits from God, from judgment. God will what? If they don't do tshuva, God will vomit them out. So we see a relationship. Hananel, what did you want to say before? Would you share with us? So if you want to say, please tell us. Gentlemen, here we have in Pasuk Yud Gimel a metaphor related to the agricultural world. What works do you see at the beginning of Yud Gimel? Choresh and then Kotzer. These are, by the way, Shabbat Melachot, Avot Melachot that we're not allowed to do on Shabbat. Let's ask the farmer sitting at the table, when do we do Charisha? When do we plow in the land of Israel? I see those not answering are city boys.
So in the fall?
In the winter, the fall, the beginning of the fall, winter, right before the rains come. So we can benefit from the rain. Then we'll sow wheat, barley, and so on and so forth. When is the time of Kotzer? Harvesting? Spring? From Pesach to Shavuot, that's right. What will be an abundance in the land of Israel in the future? That the people doing Charisha, who will they approach and meet? The ones doing the Ktsira. Do you understand what's happening here? Someone that's plowing the ground, the turf to prepare it for sowing. Do you know when what he's doing it? He's going to meet the harvester. In other words, how will he meet the harvester? There's going to be so much to harvest that it'll go through the entire summer. It'll go through the beginning of the fall, and he'll meet up with the plower. That's a sign of bracha. Imagine. He's going to start in the summertime to do the harvesting, and it'll continue month after month. It'll be so much. So much. Are you aware when the communist wall fell in 1991, was it? When was it? When did the Berlin Wall and the communist, when did it fall? 89, 90. Russia was in terrible economic situation. They would be waiting online for basic commodities like soap and other things. And they had a big deficit, even in food. Do you know this little country called the State of Israel sent out plane loads of tomatoes to the big Russia? Is Russia big? Is it's a little larger in size than Israel?
Yeah. Just a little.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
I was asking myself how much is Russia larger than Israel? How is it that this little country can send a surplus, tons and tons of tomatoes to big Russia?
Russia needs its borscht.
No, but God is blessing the land of Israel. My Rabbi would say, I think Rav Zalman Malam Rosh Hashiva, I think he would say to that phenomena that the land of Israel has the capability of yielding fruits and vegetables enough for the Jewish people in the world. And therefore, in the tomato growing matter, we had so much that we were able to supply Russia with a few plane loads of tomatoes. Imagine, it's irrational, illogical. The blessing, the divine blessing Hashem is giving the Jewish people. So here you see an example. Furthermore, V'dorech anavim b'Moshe Chazara. When do we harvest our grapes in the land of Israel in order to produce wine, for instance? We do it in the summertime. We pick the grapes, and if you're sowing, you're going to sow in Kislev.
To be harvest the beginning, right?
No, not necessarily. In the summertime, we already in June, July, August, we have the picking of grapes in order to make wine. The stomping of the wine will continue months and months until we do sowing in the winter. This is a bracha that's stated even in the book of Chumash Devarim. Amazing. By the way, one of the lighters of the torches of the ceremony of Yom Ha'atzmaut was a company in the Shomron that's producing apparently boutique wine that's very, very special, dry wine that they probably won a contest in Europe or so. And that's the coming back of the Jewish people and their wines being so special, so tasty. Okay? When we had our Shabbat in Givat Asaf and we went to buy some wine from the, you weren't with us then? You drank the wine though?
Yes.
Okay. So we went to buy the wine. We were amazed that it was such an expensive wine because he markets it in New York and ever. The end of the Pasuk Yud Gimel, V'hitifu ha'arim asis. Lehatif. What shoresh do you see inside the word lehatif? Find the shoresh, the root in the word. Which what?
Tifta.
Very good. Which is right. Which is what? Drip. Very good. From the word tipot. Is that what you agree? V'hitifu ha'arim asis. Asis is the sweetness that flows from the fruits. So from the mountains, okay, the mountains that will be implanted with atzei pri. Some of you may know that the mountains of the land of Israel carry the special trees of the land of Israel, like the zayit, the rimon, the pomegranate. What other good fruits grow in the mountains?
Apples as well, no?
Yes, apples also, and pears in the
Dates.
Galilee. Dates grow in the valleys.
desert.
In the valleys, that's correct. The Mishnah says that in Masechet Bikurim. So we have pomegranates, olives. The vines of the grapes.
Yeah.
That's the grapes for wine in the mountains. They're going to be so full of sweetness. It will just flow like tipot, like drops from the fruits. V'chol ha'givaot, and all the hilltops, like mountains, they will have titmogagna. It's going to be so much milk there, so much fruity dripping from it, that it'll be an amazing thing. Today, I don't have to tell you, or I do have to tell you, that the fruits of the land of Israel were the leading growers per dunam in fruits, mango and bananas, and you can walk around the European Common Market in Europe and you'll find fruits of the land of Israel, except for those that are boycotting our fruits, right? There's still some people that don't like us, I think, in Europe. Am I right? Just a little?
Let's find the one who likes it.
So you see the bracha that we have. And now we come to the ending of the Haftarah, the last two psukim, which is not history, but today. Pasuk Yudalid, V'shavti et shavot ami Yisrael. God, through the prophet, is promising that Am Yisrael will come back. Who knows the section of tshuva or the section of geula in the Chumash? Where is it? Because this pasuk is also based upon that God promises, I'm going to come back. God, your Lord, will come back to its land. It's in the book of Dvarim, chapter 30. Very good. In Parshat Nitzavim. There we call it the Parshia of Tshuva / Geula. So here it is. God is promising, I will what? Bring my nation to return to the land of Israel. Uvanu, what will they build? Arim nishamot. Nishamot does not mean nishama. Rather, from the word shemama, desolate. The desolate cities will be built. Mamash happening in the last 100 years here. V'yashavu, and they'll settle there. V'nat'u chramim, and they will plant vineyards. Yesterday, we walked through the area next to Beit. You looked back, we saw tens of thousands of vines. You saw that at the beginning. Wow, what we saw. Tens of thousands of vines. Amazing. What a bracha. We're seeing the fulfillment of God's words through these prophets. So you're going to plant the kramim, v'shatu et yinam, and you'll drink their wine. Remember, the beverage of the Jewish people is not Coca-Cola. The beverage of the Jewish people is wine. It's wine. Okay? It didn't start in France or California. It started with the Jewish people. And for that, we have a special bracha over the beverage of wine. Not orange juice or Coca-Cola. We have a special bracha for wine.
Started with Noah.
Yeah, he was a shikar. He was a drunkard. You're right.
Even though he was not Jewish.
He was a Ben Noach. He was a Noach himself. So here, the promising of the resettling of the land, the agricultural work of the land, planting vineyards and producing wine. This coming Shabbat, maybe this gentleman often brings wine to the table. He buys a nice wine for Shabbat, even in the Machon, and you may drink a little wine. Realize that you're drinking the wine of God's words. You're living the prophecy. And as years are going, the wines in Israel are getting even better and better. Once upon a time, we took a trip to the Golan. We went into the famous wine cellar, producers of the Golan wines in the city of Katzrin. And they're making of the best wines. They're also winning contests in Europe and other places. And this is Hashem's words coming true. Wow. So dynamic to be living in a period of time that Hashem is promising, and now we're seeing the fulfillment of these promises more than 2,400 years ago. Vasu ganot, you'll make gardens. Vachlu et prihem. We're the leading growers of vegetation, of vegetables and fruits. And some people ask, maybe if we get out of hand, we'll be dispersed from the land. There's often discussion, will there be a third destruction? A third destruction, God forbid. There are some sources in the Midrash that we can point out that is the source, that never ever will there be a third destruction. I like to understand sometimes from this last pasuk that the Jewish people, even though Amos is before the destruction of the temple, that this could be referring to the future, that we will never be taken out of our land after the second destruction. Although I can't prove it. But he says here, Unita'atim al admatam. When a Jew lives in the land of Israel, it's like a planting, a tree planting. Why? When we're living with our feet and hands, are we like a tree? Unitatim al admatam. I'm asking you. Why are we likened to a tree? Huh? Why are we likened to a tree?
Maybe because the tree has stages that sometimes it blows, it grows, and then it dies in the winter, and then it comes back.
So we may be dormant at certain periods of time. That could be one meaning.
And because you have roots.
Oh.
Yeah, when it cuts, yeah.
Very nice. Two sides to the tree. There are things that are exposed to the human eye, and there are things that we cannot see. The tree has leaves, flowers before leaves, fruits. One of the famous singers, national singers, I don't know if he's Misorati maybe, Yehoram Gaon. Have you heard of his name? Yehoram Gaon. You've heard of him, David? Okay. He's an old-timer. I think he was interviewed recently. Right after our trip, I went to the hospital to visit my father, and he was in hospitalized for a short time. Hope he gets out soon. So I went to Hadassah. I spent time with him, and he said he heard from Yehoram Gaon that over the last century, there have been Jews and others that are saying, "Zo, this is the end of the Jewish people. They're going to be obliterated. They're going to be finished, gone." There were those that said it right before the Holocaust. This is the end of the Jewish people, but it didn't happen. There were those that said and thought it's going to happen, we'll be finished at the War of Independence. Well, we just celebrated the Declaration of the State. We were outnumbered 60-1, like we talked about statistics on the bus, but it didn't happen. There were those that say at the 6-Day War, we were going to be obliterated. And there was those that said that at the Yom Kippur War, which we were surprised, and we lost so many, and even, I think it's quoted, Moshe Dayan, who was the defense minister, he also said to high-ranking officers, it could be the end of the Jewish people there. That didn't happen. And what is the fifth time? There are people saying now this is the end of the Jewish people with the political differences today. But Yoram Gaon says, what you explained now, and he explains then, if we have roots, then we're not going to be obliterated. And the Jewish people have roots. We go back a long time. We have a tradition of a long time. We have a Torah of a long time. And people that are idealistic, believing in Hashem, Elokei Yisrael, and connected to their roots, connected to their history, where we come from, and to where are we going, what objective do we have, then we'll never be finished. We are the nation of eternity. So maybe that could be one of the reasons that the prophet likens us to a planting. Unita'atim al admatam. And you'll be implanted like a tree with roots in your land. Velo yinachu od mi'al admatam asher natati. You will never be taken out again from your land that I gave you. Amar Hashem Elokecha. So we see here, my dear friends, that amidst the Puranut, the disaster that's told to us here, that we shouldn't think that since we're the nation of God, we're free of God's din, His judgment and punishment. That cannot be. On the contrary, because we're Hashem's nation, we have an obligation. We have a commitment. We have a designation. And the more we learn Torah and clarify who we are, where we come from, and what is the purpose of our Torah and the mitzvot, and to where are we heading, and what we're building, then we'll know that Hashem certainly will obligate us if we go off of the derech. Hashem, of course, is a loving God. Of course, He is a God of rachamim, and we're warned once or twice or sometimes even more times. But in the end, we know we have a commitment. And here at the end of the Haftarah, like you said, it's a happy ending. After the rebuke, the Sefer ends with what we call nechama, which means consolation. What's my name? Menachem. Menachem comes from the word nechama, consolation. And that's the job of Amos. Purposely, God says, this is what I want you to write the Sefer with consolation in the end. Because if we only hear, God forbid, din, why? It's very scary. I could be without optimism. I could be without hope. No, there is optimism. There is hope. There's no reason to panic. And today we see the Jewish people are coming back. If I'm not mistaken, we were told at the Tiyul there are more than 140,000 yeshiva students today in Eretz Yisrael.
How much?
More than 140,000. Never. I don't think even in Poland and Russia, pre-World War II, were that many. We are reaching new heights. The Torah is coming back home. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. We're coming back. The Torah is coming back home. The land is being developed and cultivated like it never was ever. The economy is higher than most countries. They just made a survey. Who are the most happiest people in the world? We're country number 4. Do you know what that means? That people are satisfied, that they're happy? We're number 4 after what? Switzerland and what are the other countries, Hananel?
They haven't had war. They never have,
No, those countries never have war. We have wars, terrorist problems, security problems, and yet we're number 4 already.
The Scandinavians are in the first places.
Because they have no security problems, right?
No, nothing.
Do they lock their doors at night?
No.
What? You don't think so? And not only that, the economy. You know what the gross national product is? What is it called?
GDP.
GDP, thank you. It's been doubled the last 20, 30, 40 years. Doubled. So things here in Eretz Yisrael are moving forward. B'ezrat Hashem. So too, shall we go forward and move forward. Amen. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Shalom.